Let me ruin a myth for you. A whole lot of Arizona is not a retirement brochure. It's expensive, it's crowded, and half of it is trying to cook you alive by noon. But hidden in the high country and the border valleys are these tiny towns that quietly figured it out. Cheap homes, clean air, cool summers, and just enough weird to keep things interesting. This is a countdown of 10 of them, and fair warning, each one comes with a catch, because nowhere is perfect, and I'm not going to lie to you like the tourism board does. Here's a taste of what's coming. One town's entire economy is basically 5 million tourists a year driving through to look at a big hole in the ground. One has no hospital. One might genuinely be haunted. And one gets so much snow that 58 people voluntarily live above 8,000 feet with no gas station in sight. Hit subscribe or keep overpaying for a city you don't even like. Let's get into it. Number 10. Williams. If you've ever driven north toward the Grand Canyon, you've probably blown right through Williams without giving it a second look. That's a mistake. This little Route 66 town sits at almost 7,000 feet in the Kaibab National Forest, with only about 3,200 people calling it home. And while the desert down south is busy melting your steering wheel, Williams is sitting up here in the pines with summer highs in the low 80s and actual snow in the winter. Here's what makes Williams special. It was the very last town on the entire length of Route 66 to get bypassed by the interstate, holding out all the way until 1984. The locals fought that highway like it owed them money. And because of that stubbornness, the whole 6-block downtown is still frozen in this gorgeous mid-century Route 66 time capsule. All neon signs and vintage gas stations and a steakhouse called Rod's that's been slinging beef since 1946. The town is named after Bill Williams, a legendary mountain man and fur trapper. And every summer, a group of locals dresses up as the Bill Williams Mountain Men and rides through town like it's still 1870. There's a little museum inside an old Route 66 gas station, a whole strip of neon-lit diners and saloons, and the Grand Canyon Railway that pulls right out of the historic depot and carries you 60 miles straight to the South Rim. You've also got 7 lakes and reservoirs within 18 miles for fishing and kayaking, and a drive-through wildlife park called Bearizona, where you can look actual black bears in the eye from the safety of your car. For a town this size, the sheer amount to do is ridiculous. Williams was founded back in 1881 and trademarked the slogan, "Gateway to the Grand Canyon," and honestly, it earns it. In the fall, the surrounding forest turns gold, and the elk drift down out of the hills, and on winter weekends, there's a small ski and tubing hill just minutes from the historic depot. Now, the honest catch. Williams runs on tourism, and I mean it mainlines the stuff. Something like 5 million people pass through here every year on their way to that big hole in the ground. There are 42 hotels and motels for a town of barely 3,000 residents. So the charm is real, but the economy lives and dies on strangers driving through with cameras, which means seasonal swings and a lot of service jobs. If you move here, you're moving to a place that's basically a permanent open house. Some people love that energy. Some people last about a summer. Number 9. Show Low. Yes, that's the real name. And no, I'm not making that up. Show Low sits up in the White Mountains at around 6,400 feet, home to about 11,700 people, and it has hands down the best origin story of any town on this list. Back in the 1800s, 2 settlers named Cordon Cooley and Marion Clark owned a 100,000-acre ranch together and decided the property wasn't big enough for both of them. So instead of a lawsuit or a duel, they settled it the civilized way, with a card game. They played a round of 7-Up, and Clark told Cooley, "If you can show low, you win." Cooley flipped over the deuce of clubs, the lowest card in the deck, and said, "Show low it is." That's the town name, and to this day the main street through town is literally called Deuce of Clubs. An entire community exists because one guy drew a bad card and won. The town even leans into it with an annual festival called Show Low Days, complete with a parade, a rodeo, and a carnival. Life up here is proper 4-season mountain living. You've got ponderosa pine forest in every direction, lakes and streams for fishing, and skiing at Sunrise Park Resort just down the road. Because it's cool and green in the summer and snowy in the winter, Show Low pulls tourists in all 4 seasons instead of just one, which spreads the local economy out nicely. It's also the regional hub for the whole area, so unlike some of the smaller towns coming up, you actually get a hospital, real shopping and services for about 50,000 people spread across the surrounding region. That combination of small town feel with big town amenities is rarer than it sounds. Just outside town, you've got Fool Hollow Lake and Show Low Lake, both stocked with trout and ringed by campgrounds, and the edge of the dramatic Mogollon Rim is right there for hiking and jaw-dropping overlooks. It's quietly become a magnet for retirees and remote workers who want pine trees and four seasons without leaving the state. The downside is the isolation. You're 3 to 4 hours from any major city, so weekend trips to a real airport become a lifestyle. And this is fire country. The infamous Rodeo Chediski fire in 2002 got put out less than half a mile from the town's border. Show Low is completely spared, but we survived by half a mile is the kind of local history that makes your home insurance guy nervous. It's also spread out and car dependent, so don't come expecting to stroll everywhere on foot. Number 8. Tubac. Now we head all the way south below Tucson, to a town of somewhere between 1,200 and 1,900 people, depending on who's counting. Tubac's whole personality is that it's older than pretty much everything. This is the site of Arizona's first European settlement, a Spanish military fort built way back in 1752. That's 24 years before the United States even existed. Today, that history has turned into one of the most concentrated art scenes in the Southwest. Tubac has over 100 galleries, studios, and shops packed into a tiny adobe village with the tagline, "Where Art and History Meet." Picture whitewashed adobe walls, shaded courtyards, Spanish colonial architecture, and working artists in nearly every building. You've got the Tubac Presidio State Historic Park, the Tumacacori Mission Ruins just down the road, birding and hiking along the Juan Bautista de Anza National Historic Trail, and a golf resort for good measure. The town throws big arts festivals that pull in thousands of visitors, and the median household income sits around $80,000, so this is a comfortable, well-heeled little enclave. For a place you could walk across in 15 minutes, it punches absurdly far above its weight on culture, and the history runs deeper than most people realize. In 1775, the famous Anza expedition that went on to found San Francisco set out from right here, so this little town is literally woven into the founding of the West Coast. The Tubac Golf Resort just down the road is where they filmed the Kevin Costner movie Tin Cup, and the Tubac Center of the Arts anchors a year-round calendar packed with shows and workshops. It's also aged like a fine wine, and I mean that literally. The median age here hovers somewhere around 64, and homes are not cheap for a town this remote. The median listing price has climbed past $600,000, and houses tend to sit on the market for a long while before they sell. And here's the real catch. There is no hospital in Tubac. The nearest one is about 20 miles up the road in Green Valley. When your town's median resident is retirement age and your nearest emergency room is 20 miles away, that's a math problem worth thinking about before you sign anything. Beautiful place. Just keep a full tank of gas and a good doctor on speed dial. Number 7. Sonoita and Elgin. Picture rolling golden grasslands, mountains on the horizon, and vineyards as far as you can see. Now picture that in Arizona, because that's exactly what this is. Sonoita and Elgin are two tiny neighboring communities way down in the southeast, sitting up around 4,500 to 5,000 feet, with a combined population that barely scrapes 1,000 people. And together they make up Arizona's original wine country. This was the state's first officially recognized wine region, and it now has around 20 wineries and distilleries spread across these high grasslands. The cool nights and long growing season produce genuinely good wine, to the point where Wine Enthusiast magazine floated the idea that this could be the next Napa. A Northern Arizona University study found that wine tourism spending in the state exploded past $240 million, up several times over in a little more than a decade, and the number of wine producers in Arizona more than tripled over the same stretch. The desert grape is having a real moment, and the personality out here is fantastic. One local winery got famous for pairing its wine with hot Cheetos and Fritos, and hosts a summer sleepover where you camp overnight at the vineyard under some of the darkest skies in the state. There's a brewery called the Copper Brothel and a walkable little cluster of tasting rooms. This whole area also doubled as the backdrop for Hollywood westerns, with movies like Oklahoma, Tin Cup, and Young Guns, plus the old Gunsmoke TV series, all filmed out here in these grasslands. Here's my favorite piece of trivia, though. Growing grapes was actually illegal in Arizona from 1915 all the way until the early 1980s. So this entire wine paradise is younger than most of the people drinking in it. This is horse and ranch country, too. Wide open and quiet, with Mount Wrightson towering over the whole valley and a rail trail you can walk or bike between the vineyards. The wineries throw big festivals every spring and fall, and on a clear night, the stargazing out here is some of the best in the state. Quick pause. If cheap, beautiful, slightly weird places to live is your entire personality, you are exactly who this channel is for. Hit subscribe so the next one finds you. Now back to the wine country's one honest flaw. Everything out here is spread out, and I mean spread out. There's no walkable downtown stitching it all together, and there are almost no services beyond the wineries themselves, so groceries and errands mean a drive. You will need a car to get anywhere, and given that the main attraction is roughly 20 wineries, you're also going to need a very patient designated driver. Paradise, yes. Convenient, absolutely not. Number 6. Ajo. Let's talk about the wild card of this entire list. Ajo is a remote desert town of about 3,000 people, sitting out in the far southwest corner of the state, roughly 2 hours from both Phoenix and Tucson, and only 43 miles from the Mexican border. Its name is Spanish for garlic, and it might be the best value town in all of Arizona. Here's the number that should get your attention. The typical home value in Ajo is around $94,000, not a typo. While the rest of Arizona is asking $400,000 plus, Ajo is out here selling actual houses for less than a nice pickup truck. That's the kind of price that makes accountants cry. Now, Ajo used to be a copper mining town. In fact, it calls itself the birthplace of copper mining in Arizona, built around the massive New Cornelia open pit mine. Two minerals, ajwite and papaguite, were even first discovered right here. When the mine shut down in 1985, the town could have just died like 100 other western mining towns, and for a while with high poverty and unemployment, it looked like it might. Instead, it reinvented itself as an arts colony. A nonprofit took the historic 1919 Curley School and converted it into 30 affordable live work apartments for artists, a $9 million project that even landed one of the country's first national arts grants of its kind. Every couple of years, the town hosts a street mural festival, and the whole place centers on this gorgeous 1920s Spanish colonial plaza, palm trees, and two white mission churches that looks like a movie set. It's also the closest community to Organ Pipe Cactus National Monument, some of the most striking and remote desert scenery in the country. Even Ajo's origin story has a surprising footnote, since the town's founding family was tied to Isabella Greenway, the first woman Arizona ever sent to Congress. These days, a lot of the steady paychecks come from the local border patrol station and a growing crowd of snowbirds who winter here for the price and the quiet. The catch is written in the weather. This is the low desert, so that mild winter dream comes with brutal summers. Ajo hit an official record of 120 degrees in July of 2023, and heat like that isn't a one-off, it's the season. Combine that with the isolation, the 2-hour drive to a real city, and a history of economic struggle after the mine closed, and Ajo is not for everyone. But if you're an artist, a remote worker, or a retiree who wants to own your home outright and can handle the heat and the distance, there might be nothing else like it in America at this price. Number 5. Patagonia. No, not the jacket company, and no, nowhere near South America. This Patagonia is a tiny town of only about 800 people tucked into a Green Creek Valley in the southeast at around 4,000 feet, right along Sonoita Creek. And it is a genuine hidden gem for anyone who loves the outdoors. Patagonia sits right in the heart of what scientists call the Sky Islands, a region where desert and mountain ecosystems collide, and it happens to fall along a major migratory flyway. That combination creates some of the best birding on the entire planet. Serious birdwatchers fly in from around the world just to stand in this valley with binoculars, hoping to spot species that barely appear anywhere else in the country. You've got Patagonia Lake State Park, with a 265-acre reservoir for boating and fishing, endless hiking, and a little creek-fed microclimate that keeps things cooler and greener than the surrounding desert. The Nature Conservancy runs a famous creek preserve right on the edge of town, and in the warmer months, the whole area fills with hummingbirds and rare visitors that draw photographers from all over the world. The town itself is a small, artsy, laid-back pocket with a couple of good cafes, an old saloon, and a fall festival that basically doubles the population for a weekend. For a town this small, the quality of life markers are surprisingly strong. The public schools rate above average, the arts and artisan community is tight-knit, and the crime rate is about as close to zero as a functioning town can get. It's the kind of place where low crime isn't a marketing line. It's just what happens when 800 people all know each other's business and half of them are retired. The honest trade-off is baked into that same smallness. The population is tiny and actually shrinking. Roughly 40% of residents are over 65. The median household income sits around $40,000. And the job market is basically non-existent unless you bring your own income with you. This is a town for the retired, the remote, and the self-sufficient. If you need a career, Patagonia will love you and starve you at the same time. Number 4. Pinetop Lakeside. Time to go back up into the cool country. Pinetop Lakeside sits at around 7,000 feet in the White Mountains, home to roughly 4,000 people, and it exists inside the largest continuous stand of ponderosa pine forest in the world. If your mental image of Arizona is red rock and saguaro, this place will short-circuit your brain. It's all towering pines, mountain lakes, and snow. This is cabin country in its purest form. In fact, Pinetop Lakeside was voted the best cabin region in the entire United States by a national cabin magazine. You've got the White Mountains Trail System, 200 miles of multi-use trails for hiking, biking, and horseback riding, plus Woodland Lake Park right in town, golf courses and trout fishing in more lakes than you can name. In the winter, the whole thing flips to cross-country skiing and snowmobiling, with Sunrise Park Resort, one of Arizona's largest ski areas, about 45 minutes away. This is one of the only corners of Arizona where you get 4 real distinct seasons, clean mountain air, and dark star-filled skies at night. It's also prime elk and deer country, wrapped in the Apache Sitgreaves National Forests, with the White Mountain Apache Reservation and its string of lakes sitting right next door. Summers up here run something like 30 degrees cooler than Phoenix, which is exactly why the whole region fills up with heat refugees from June through September. The name, by the way, comes from an old saloon keeper nicknamed Pinetop. The two towns, Pinetop and Lakeside, only officially merged into one back in 1984. Two tiny mountain communities that decided they were stronger together. The median household income here sits around $60,000, and a big chunk of the housing is cabins and second homes owned by folks escaping the Phoenix heat. The downside here is the same one that haunts a lot of mountain paradise. The economy is seasonal, leaning hard on summer cabin goers and second homeowners, so year-round work can be thin and wages modest. And this is serious wildfire territory. The region faced a major evacuation during that same 2002 fire, and living in the middle of the world's biggest pine forest is exactly as flammable as it sounds. Gorgeous, but hey, keep a go bag by the door. Number 3. Prescott. Okay, Prescott is the big kid on this list, with a population somewhere around 50,000, so it stretches the definition of tiny. But I had to include it because Prescott might be the single best balanced quality of life town in the whole state, and it earned its nickname, everybody's hometown. Sitting at around 5,400 feet in the Central Highlands, Prescott gets 4 gentle seasons and summers that run about 20 degrees cooler than Phoenix. This was the original capital of the Arizona Territory, and it has the history to prove it, with over 800 buildings on the National Register and the legendary Whiskey Row downtown, home to the Palace, the oldest bar and restaurant in Arizona. It also hosts what it bills as the world's oldest rodeo, and yes, it officially trademarked itself as Arizona's Christmas City. Add in Prescott National Forest, Watson Lake with its surreal granite boulders, Willow Creek Reservoir, a genuine arts and music scene, and a cluster of colleges including Embry-Riddle and Yavapai College, and you've got a town that truly has it all. Commutes average around 14 minutes, and there's a huge, active 55-plus community that gives the place its easygoing pace. The heart of town is the classic Courthouse Plaza, a green square ringed by shops and restaurants where they hold concerts, art fairs, and a famous Christmas lighting every year. And just north of downtown, the Granite Dells are a surreal maze of rounded boulders and hidden trails that has turned the whole area into a haven for veterans, hikers, and outdoorsy retirees. If you're taking notes on where to actually move, now's a great time to hit that like button. It tells the algorithm to send more of these your way. Because here comes Prescott's catch. That has it all comes with a price tag, and it's climbing fast. The median home price in Prescott has pushed past $600,000, well above the rest of small town Arizona and rising every year. It gets busy with tourists on summer weekends. The region's water supply is under real ongoing pressure, and the town skews older and quieter than a younger buyer might want. Prescott is the dream if you can afford it. It's just no longer the bargain it was for the generation that discovered it first. Number 2. Jerome. Now things get strange. Jerome is a town of roughly 450 people, clinging to the side of Cleopatra Hill on a 30-degree slope, halfway between Prescott and Sedona. At its peak, this was a copper mining boom town of 15,000 people, nicknamed the wickedest town in the West. When the mine closed, almost everyone left, and Jerome became known as America's largest ghost town. Then, in the 1960s and 70s, the artists moved in, and it came back to life as one of the most unique little communities in the country. The entire town is now a National Historic Landmark District. In its heyday, this single hillside pulled more than $1 billion in copper out of the ground, and the streets are so vertical they switch back up the mountain in tight little loops, with houses stacked almost on top of each other. Down the road, you can wander the old Gold King mine, a wonderfully rusty ghost town junkyard of antique cars and mining gear, which is exactly the kind of gloriously strange attraction Jerome specializes in. Let me tell you about the jail. Jerome's third jail was built in 1905. Then years of dynamite blasting in the mines loosened the entire mountain, and in the 1930s the jail simply broke free and started sliding downhill. It traveled about 225 feet before it stopped, ending up in the middle of the road below. And the town's response? They didn't move it back, they just rerouted the road around it. That sliding jail is still sitting there today. An entire town looked at a runaway prison and collectively shrugged. That's the energy of the whole place. Jerome is now a thriving artist colony with a cooperative gallery that represents dozens of local Arizona artists, plus wine tasting rooms and Verde Valley views that stop your heart. The rock star Maynard James Keenan, the frontman of the band Tool, runs a famous winery here. There's a cliffside restaurant called The Haunted Hamburger. And the Jerome Grand Hotel, which used to be the town hospital back in the 1920s, is now one of the most famously haunted hotels in America, still running the oldest self-service elevator in Arizona. The ghost stories are mostly local legend, of course, but you can genuinely book a room in the old hospital and lie there all night waiting for something to say hello. The catch is that Jerome is almost aggressively impractical. It's tiny, it's brutally steep. Walking to your mailbox is legitimate cardio. Homes are pricey fixer-uppers, and the economy runs entirely on tourists. But if you want to live inside a beautiful, haunted, artistic fever dream, perched on a mountainside, there is nowhere else on earth quite like it. And number 1, Bisbee. If Jerome is the eccentric artist, Bisbee is its slightly more livable big sibling, and it takes the top spot on this list. Down in the Mule Mountains of the southeast corner sits a town of about 4,900 people at an elevation of 5,538 feet. Read that number again because it matters. Bisbee is higher than Denver. The mile-high city has nothing on this old copper town. Bisbee was once the largest city between St. Louis and San Francisco, the queen of the copper camps and all that mining money, built a stunning Victorian town, stacked up the canyon walls, brick buildings, and staircases climbing in every direction. You can still tour the Old Queen Mine, riding a little rail car deep underground where the miners once worked. When Phelps Dodge stopped mining in 1975, the hippies and artists rolled in, and Bisbee transformed into this cosmopolitan, liberal-leaning, wonderfully weird little enclave that feels nothing like the Arizona you're picturing. Down in Brewery Gulch, you'll find the Copper Queen Hotel, the oldest continuously operating hotel in Arizona, and, naturally, also said to be haunted. And right on the edge of town gapes the Lavender Pit, an enormous abandoned open-pit mine you can walk up to and stare down into, a jaw-dropping reminder of just how much copper came out of these hills. Here's why it earns number 1. It's got the elevation, so summers top out in the mild 80s while Phoenix is trying to kill people. It's got the culture, galleries and bakeries and coffee shops and bars and a genuine arts community. It's actually affordable with median home values that have hovered around $200,000, less than half the Arizona average, and rents that would make a big city renter weep with envy. The cost of living overall runs below the national average, and the commutes average around 13 minutes because the whole town is walkable. Roughly 1 in 5 residents is over 65, so it's retiree friendly without feeling like a retirement colony. And it's got personality for days, including the Bisbee 1000, an annual race where people voluntarily run up over 1,000 of the town's historic staircases, which is either inspiring or a cry for help. The honest catch, and there's always a catch. Bisbee's population skews older and the job market is weak, so this is another town that rewards remote workers, retirees, and the self-employed far more than someone chasing a traditional career. The terrain is steep enough that hauling groceries home becomes a workout, and some longtime locals will happily bend your ear about the water quality. But for the combination of cool climate, low cost, walkability, culture, and pure character, nothing else in Arizona quite matches it. The whole photogenic tangle of staircases and Victorian storefronts has made Bisbee a favorite backdrop for film crews, painters, and photographers, and the tiny town packs in more galleries, festivals, and live music than places 20 times its size. Bisbee is the secret that the people who live there kind of wish you'd stop finding out about. So there's your list. 10 tiny Arizona towns, proving that this state is hiding pine forests, wine country, ghost towns, and artist colonies behind all that desert PR. The real question isn't whether these places are worth it. It's which version of the good life you actually want. The mountain cabin, the haunted hillside, the cheap desert plaza, or the mile-high Victorian town that time forgot. Whichever one had you quietly opening a real estate app halfway through, that's your answer. And if you noticed a pattern, you're paying attention. Almost every one of these places rewards the same kind of person: the remote worker, the retiree, the self-employed. Anyone who can bring their own income and trade a big paycheck for cheap rent, cool air, and a little peace and quiet. If this saved you from another year of overpaying for a city you don't even like, do the decent thing and subscribe, because we do this every single day, digging up the best and strangest places to actually live in America. Personally, if you handed me the keys today, I'd point my car straight at Bisbee. Mile high, half priced, and pleasantly strange. But I want to hear your pick. Drop a comment telling me which town you'd move to tomorrow, and I'll see you in the next one.